Hello, third and fourth grade. This is the last main lesson story of your school year. I just left you a bit ago on the Zoom call and my heart just aches a little. I miss seeing you guys and I just wish we could have had a different end of our year, but this is what we were given and we just have to make the most of it and we learn and grow from these experiences. Before I read to you Ragnarokk, I want to tell you that this is a long story. So grab a snack, pull up a chair, and just listen with your heart's content because it is a good ending. As I was sitting with you earlier on the Zoom call, I need to show you this. Shadow ripped this page out of the book. My puppy. Anyways, let's begin. Ragnarokk. So, Yggdrasil. We know that the world tree is connected to the Aesir so deeply that when it falls, the Aesir will come to an end. The tree itself was trembling and the evergreen leaves were beginning to wilt. Odin was deeply troubled. He knew that he had broken his pact with Loki by allowing the other gods to bring harm to him. Loki was his blood brother, and it was said that no harm could be done to him. But Loki had done something horrible. He had left the world without Balder. And without Balder, there just was no kindness, and there was none to be found anywhere. And everything was pretty gloomy on Earth, and people were fighting, and everything was just going bad. So Odin went to the grave of the wise woman, the Volva, and to the head of Mimir and asked for advice. But all that he could hear was this: axe time, sword time, ere the world fall, wind time, wolf time. Do you know more now or not? Odin knew that Ragnarokk, the day of reckoning, was coming. So this would be when the fates of the gods were decided. And soon the Aesir must face the forces of destruction and win over them, or be themselves destroyed. So without Balder, there was no kindness. Brother could no longer trust brother. In their lust for gold, men stole from each other and killed each other, and bloody wars raged all over the earth. Odin and his Valkyries were traveling from battle to battle. Thor was busy himself, fighting all the Jotuns. From one place to the other, he would hear his name called and travel with Mjolnir and fight the Jotuns. A winter came that lasted for 3 years. Deep snow covered the ground. Nothing could sprout at all. Nothing could grow. Men no longer fought for gold during this time, but they fought just to stay alive. For food, they were fighting. And Hell's Hall was filled to the bursting with those who had died from starvation. Then, early one morning, long before daybreak, the golden cock of Asgard, remember, sitting up high, stretched out his neck and crowed loudly. An answer came echoing up through the ground from the soot-black cock that perched on the roof of Hell's Hall. The day of reckoning had come. Ragnarokk was here. The earth split open all the way to the world of the dead, and all the bonds of the world broke with a twang. Garm, the hound of hell, leapt free from his leash. Fenris the wolf shook off his magic fetter, and Loki rose free from his ledge. Remember, from where the serpent was dripping the poison. No longer was anyone bound by anything. In the deepest Niflheim, the dragon Nidhogg gnawed and gnawed at the root of the world tree. Yggdrasil trembled and groaned and lost all of its leaves. Wahoo! Cried the Norns at the foot of the tree. Remember the Norns? They wove destiny into everyone that was born. They covered their faces and stopped spinning all the threads of life. From his watch on top of the rainbow, Heimdall now saw enemies coming from all directions. He lifted high his horn and blew with all his might. The blasts of the Jarlhorn shrilled through all worlds, and the Aesir leapt to their feet and donned their battle gear. Valhalla's many doors sprang open, and out rushed Odin's vast army of heroes. With loud battle cries, they fell into formation behind Odin. The huge army of gods and heroes marched through the gates of Asgard. First came Odin on his 8-legged steed, Sleipnir, his single eye gleaming like the sun, and at his side strode Thor with enormous steps. He swung his hammer, gnashed his teeth, and his eyes fell on the welter of Jotuns and many-headed trolls rolling down from the east. From the frothing sea, the Midgard serpent slithered up on land, and there he was met by his brother Fenris. By now the wolf was so enormous that his gaping jaws touched the earth and the vault of the sky. And had there been room in his jaws, would have gaped wider still. Side by side, the two dreadful monsters pushed forward. Out of the north came a ghoulish ship, the Naglfar. Its sides were covered with clippings of finger and toenails, and it was manned by a crew of ghosts. Standing at the rudder and sailing the ship straight through the raging sea was Loki. He was back for revenge. The din of monsters was so loud that the vault of the sky split open. Through the crack burst Surt, ruler of Muspelheim, the world of fire. He swung his flaming sword and set fire to everything it touched as he rushed toward the Rainbow Bridge. Behind him surged his warriors, horde upon horde of fire demons, all set upon conquering Asgard. But when they stormed the shimmering bridge, it broke and fell. Surt and his warriors then made for the wide field of Vigrid, the greatest field in the world. 100 miles long and 100 miles wide. It was a proper battlefield for gods and giants. There, the fire demons were joined by the hordes of trolls and Jotuns, ghosts, and monsters. In row upon row, they waited for the Aesir to come and battle. Led by Odin, the huge army of gods and heroes thundered up the field. Odin made straight for the gaping jaws of Fenris, but before he could throw his spear down the wolf's horrible gullet, the monster lurched forward and swallowed him. Thor could not come to his father's aid, for he had his hands full fighting the Midgard serpent. Time and again he threw his hammer at the hissing head, until at last the serpent gave up its breath and died. Thor lived only long enough to stagger 9 steps backward. Then he fell to the ground, killed by the serpent's poisonous breath. Odin's son, Vidar, avenged his father. He had an enormous boot made from the remnants of shoe leather that good men on earth had saved. When he leapt forward and thrust his foot into the mouth of the wolf, he tore the powerful jaws apart and split open the monster's head. Like this. The arch-enemies Loki and Heimdall fell, pierced by each other's weapons. Tyr and Garm, the Hound of Hell, also killed each other. Frey fell an easy prey when the demon Surt thrust his flaming sword through him. Frey's only weapon was a pair of antlers, for he had given away his golden sword to win the love of Gerd. Odin's vast army of heroes fought as long as there was a man standing, though Jotuns and trolls pelted them with blocks of ice and boulders. At last the battle ended. Most of the Aesir and all of Odin's warriors lay dead, and the sound of the goddesses weeping filled the world. Then the 2 Jotuns in wolf's clothing caught up with the sun and the moon and swallowed them. The Aesir world was plunged into darkness, and Yggdrasil, the world tree, broke and fell. Surt lifted his flaming sword and flung fire over everything. The sea rose above the mountains and fell crashing over the land. The air trembled, the stars were ripped from the sky as the burning earth disappeared under the waves, and the sacred halls of the Asgard toppled and fell. Out of the depths rose Nidhogg, the dragon of destruction. For a while it hovered over the fallen world, then sank back into the void. All that was left of the world of the Aesir was the field of Ida, where their glittering halls had stood. There the Aesir, who had not been destroyed, gathered again. When the earth split open, Baldur the Gentle came up from hell, leading his blind brother Hod. They were joined by Magni and Modi, Thor's young sons, and by Odin's sons, Vidar and Vali, youngest of the Aesir. And Honir, Odin's brother, came back from the faraway world of the Vanir to stand by his kinsmen. Quietly, the last of the Aesir walked over the field of Ida, looking at the ruins of their once glittering halls and talking about the great deeds of their fathers. There on the greensward, they found the golden chessmen with which they had played in the old days of power and glory. Now they had no one to lead, no one to guard. They had nothing to do but play chess and think back. So they sat down in the gray twilight and played peaceful games with their golden chessmen. And it happened that a new day dawned. Before she was swallowed by the Jotun in wolf's clothing, the sun had rapidly given birth to a daughter. The little daughter grew as big and bright as her mother had been, and she rose shining in the sky. A new moon and new stars appeared, and a new rainbow bridged the desolate sea and the high heavens far above the field of Ida. And slowly a new earth rose from the sea. It was a green and lovely new earth where seeds sprouted in unsown fields and eagles soared high over the crystal clear brooks. Again, animals roamed through the forests and fields, and fish gamboled in the sea. And then out of the secret grove of Hodmimir stepped a maiden and a youth. They were Lif and Lif's Thrasir, life and the stubborn will to live. They alone among mankind had escaped the destruction of Ragnarokk. They had hidden under the bark of trees and had found their food in the morning dew. Their descendants would people the new earth. Lif and Lif's Thrasir did not lift their heads and hands in prayer to the Aesir gods. They prayed to God Almighty, who had stepped out from above to rule all the worlds in eternity. He would gather round him all good souls to live in glory forever at Gimli, the paradise that gleamed like a jewel in the sky, far above anything else. The harsh and warlike days of the Aesir world were gone. But for hundreds of years, memories of the Aesir gods and of their foes lived on in the north. People were certain that behind the closed doors of the mountains, Jotuns and trolls were hiding. And men, lifting their heads on a stormy night to look at the raging clouds, might glimpse instead a phantom band of wild horsemen, led by one on an 8-legged steed. And that is the end of the Norse myths. Have a very happy summer, and I look forward to seeing you at Park Day.